the risk of a very large war, some say World War III. It's getting more serious. The Chinese Communist Party is stating publicly it will not allow Russia to lose the war in Ukraine, as I briefly mentioned. And this has to do with the regime's own ambitions. That's the important part. This is not about protecting Russia. This is about the CCP basically destroying Russia to protect itself. CNN said this: Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi told the European Union's top diplomat that Beijing can't accept Russia losing its war against Ukraine, as this could allow the United States to turn its full attention to China, an official briefed on talks said. In other words, we can't let Russia stop its war, or the United States might focus its military on us, meaning the CCP is propping them up basically as a human shield. Now it notes this, it says this contradicts Beijing's public position of neutrality in the conflict, although I think it's been known. NATO has already determined the CCP is basically propping up Russia in the war. It notes the admission came during what the officials said was a 4-hour meeting with EU Foreign Affairs Chief Kaja Kallas on Wednesday in Brussels that, quote, featured tough but respectful exchanges covering a broad range of issues from cybersecurity, rare earths to trade imbalances, Taiwan, and the Middle East. Now, notes the official said that Wang's private remarks suggested that Beijing might prefer a protracted war in Ukraine that keeps the United States from focusing on its rivalry with China. It says they echo concerns of critics of China's policy that Beijing is geopolitically much more at stake in the Ukrainian conflict than its admitted position of neutrality. What does this really mean? It's what I've been telling you for years. Basically, the Chinese Communist Party wants to divide the focus of the U.S. military. And the context of that is war. One of Xi Jinping's main advisors, Qin Canrong, wrote publicly several years back, again, I've reported on it, the Chinese Communist Party wants to drag the United States into 4 wars. One of those is a war with Russia. They want to keep the U.S. military divided. They want to keep us focused on several global conflicts. They wanted a war with Russia. They wanted a terrorism war. They wanted a war in Latin America. In fact, they wanted us to go to war with Brazil. That was what Qin Canrong actually wrote. Now, in terms of that, what else are we seeing? The Chinese Communist Party has been propping up Iran to a large extent. Iran is backing terrorism. The Chinese Communist Party is getting very deeply involved with the cartels, very deeply involved in Venezuela, very deeply involved now in other countries. The CCP, by propping up these gangs, propping up other problems, feeding, again, these jammer backpacks to gangs, robbing Americans, feeding the drug trade, feeding synthetic drugs, killing 70 to 100,000 Americans every single year by different estimates. For the CCP, this is war. And with this, the risk of the world basically falling into another world war, it's becoming a lot more real. In fact, the Daily Mail said this. It said NATO Chief Mark Rutte has chillingly warned that World War III will start with simultaneous invasions from Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. Secretary General Rutte suggested the combined attacks from the Chinese and Russian leaders could trigger a World War nightmare and bring the planet to the brink of Armageddon. Tell us what you really think, right? They're not mincing words here. I'll give my take in a sec. But it says, according to the NATO chief, China would start by seeking to grab Taiwan while ensuring the Kremlin dictator, Putin, simultaneously attacks NATO territory amid fears that Putin is anyway eyeing the Baltic republics, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, formerly part of the USSR. What's really going on? The Russian strategy is about controlling what they call the Eurasian Empire. They want to control the Eurasian region. And part of that ties into what they call the multipolar world order. They believe they don't need to defeat the United States. What they believe they have to do is basically eliminate U.S. partnerships, eliminate U.S. authority, eliminate the ability of the United States to maybe even become an interventionist force in the world. And by doing so, you basically just make the United States another player at the global table. Russia mainly wants to reunite, quote unquote, the former USSR, which means conquering a lot of the former Soviet bloc. Some of those countries would be a lot easier for them because they don't necessarily have large standing armies, with the exception of if NATO intervenes and backs up the standing armies to fight against them, something they do not want. Even a relatively small fighting force, think of the Mujahideen in Afghanistan fighting the Soviet Union. Even a relatively small fighting force will keep them busy for a very long time if they're backed up. The Chinese Communist Party, in its part, it wants to control most of Asia, and frankly, most of the rest of the world as well, but especially the Asian region. They believe that taking Taiwan is the first step of controlling what they call the second island chain. If they can break through the second island chain, it means they can project power through their navy globally. And they're already building up powers throughout Africa, Latin America, most of the Asian region, even going into parts now of Western Europe. And so for the Chinese Communist Party, Taiwan is the first step. If they take Taiwan, the rest of the strategies on the table. The problem they have is they don't want the United States to intervene. And on that point, the United States is aware of this, it seems. The United States right now is focusing its military more heavily towards the Asia Pacific. So despite the CCP trying to stop us from doing this, the United States is doing it. And they're stating publicly this is meant to deter the Chinese Communist Party. Robert Schlosser, you're saying, the Chinese people are victims of the CCP as more than anyone. There was an old saying about cutting the head off of the snake. Why aren't we doing that? China is just as much of a threat as Iran, just a slower way so far, but that is about to change. Well, and the crazy thing with the Chinese Communist Party is they say it. They admit it. They say that they cannot exist in the same world as the United States. The exact slogan they have is, "We live, you die." All of their talks about business are about business warfare with the United States. All their talks about the economy are economic warfare with the United States. How many times a week do they, hack our companies and steal intellectual property and then build those things and compete with us in the markets, and we just let them do it? Go on Amazon right now and tell me how many knockoff Chinese goods you see of American products. How many counterfeits do you see being sold? It's insane. And we let them do it. We just let them do it. And that's on the low end of the threat. Look at drug warfare. Look at what they're doing with the drugs. Why don't we take that seriously? Look at the spies, the amount of them they catch trying to breach our systems. Why don't we take that seriously? Look at the pressure they put on American businesses. Look, Trump's calling out Canada for wanting to tax American tech companies. What about the CCP forcing American tech companies to hand over their core codes and stuff like that? To hand over the core parts of their codes and their products when they go there. What about them forcing American tech companies to build CCP cells within their companies? Why do we let them do that? The things we've let them do, it's insane. We let them censor Hollywood films and we just let them do it. We let them pressure a basketball team because one of the guys is Muslim and writes a message against enslaved Muslims in China on his shoe, while everybody else is kneeling because they're mad at America for historical slavery, and one guy calls out real-world, current-day slavery, and he gets punished? Why do we let them do that? It's insane. We call out human rights abuses. The CCP persecutes Christians. The CCP persecutes Muslims. Where are the Christians and Muslims making noise about that? They persecute Falun Gong practitioners, and for the most part, it's been condemned by quite a few governments. I know the House of Representatives did pass the Falun Gong Protection Act, but where's the outcry against live organ harvesting? We can talk about the concentration camps of the Nazis. What about the concentration camps right now of the Chinese Communist Party? What about the extermination camps they're building to harvest people's organs for profit that we know they're doing right now in Xinjiang? We know they're building them. Why don't we take that into consideration and say, is this a country we should be doing business with? And I mean, in the entire picture, They back up, they're the enabling force of our war, of the war with Russia. They're the enabling force of a lot of global terrorism. They're the enabling force of the drug cartels. They're the enabling force of basically every conflict the United States is facing. And we don't call them out on it. We don't take it seriously. We don't draw any red lines. And we just let them do it. Why is that? It's crazy. It's crazy that we don't take this more seriously. Robert Schlosser, you're saying, the Chinese people are victims of the CCP as more than anyone. I should add too, briefly, I know there are a lot of evangelicals who've tried very hard getting Bibles into China, and they get arrested and they get persecuted. I know Christian pastors who've done this, and they've been persecuted. You know, why does the free world not say something about that? You know what I mean? It's crazy. Anyways, back to this. Sorry, I could go on for a long time. Robert Schlosser, you're saying the Chinese people are victims of the CCP. Oh, I already went over that. Anyways, folks, we're going on too long. I could go on all day with this. Let me know what you think in the chat. What do you think? I mean, I don't know. I know if you talk to guys like Gordon Cheng, they say the only way you can deal with the Chinese Communist Party is to not deal with them at all. We need to decouple completely and treat them like they treat us, which is a hostile foreign nation. Any door you leave open, they'll take advantage of it. And they do, and we know they do. It's not even hidden, right? What do you think the solution should be? Like, what should we do about it? I'm curious what your thoughts are. On the other point, what do you think about 5G? Let's get into the real fun topics here. Do you like it? A lot of you probably have internet routers that have 5G. I actually do, you know. It is a modern technology, but when you get into the weeds of electronic warfare, I mean, has anybody thought about artificial intelligence, and every guy who's developing it is saying this is going to end the human race? like they just say it. You know, I get the march of technological advancement. Do we ever draw the line? I don't know. What do y'all think about this, folks? Anyways, thank you so much for being here. Join me tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Please don't forget to give this video a like. It really does help us with the algorithms. I will see you all tomorrow. And that said, thank you so much for being here. Please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free. Thank you.